At Team Toyota, they've been selling and servicing new and used Toyotas in your community for over 50 years. And you can reserve your next new Toyota with them today. You'll get a realistic timeline, and even in this crazy market, they won't charge you over MSRP. Or don't wait at all. With over 75 certified Toyotas, including a bunch of RAV4 and Highlanders, you can drive one home today. And you can always trust them to maintain your current vehicle. Their service and collision centers are high-tech, comfortable, and will save you time and money. Team Toyota can help you go anywhere you want, but they'll always be your hometown team. Just visit teamtoyota.net and choose from 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton.
Hey folks, welcome to the Phillies Talk podcast. I am Corey Seidman and he's Jim Salisbury. And Jim, we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about the pitching moves, you and I. The pitching moves the Phillies have made early this offseason. There was obviously the huge Trea Turner splash to begin the winter meetings, another $300 million contract for the Phillies. But then Dave Dombrowski remained active, remained busy. The Phillies agreeing to a deal that still hasn't been announced yet with Taijuan Walker, 4 years, $72 million. And also a 2-year, $15 million contract for left-handed reliever Matt Strahm, which has been announced. Strahm was introduced to Philadelphia media late last week. So a big hole in the rotation has been filled, and a big hole in the bullpen has been filled also with Strahm, who brings another left-handed component to go along with Jose Alvarado.
Yes, Strahm, interesting guy. Left-hander, a little funk in the delivery. Very good breaking ball, locates his fastball, throws a slider, throws everything really. Was a starter in and out of rotation with Kansas City and was at San Diego, and then had that knee injury, and last year had a very good year for Boston. And from talking to him on Friday, he did a Zoom call with Philadelphia writers. Seemed like a real personable guy. Seems like a good dude. But, he basically came out and said that he hadn't, the Phillies were very aggressive, he said. Came at him early. Nice 2-year offer, $15 million. And, didn't sound like they were going to give a choice. This was the team that wanted it and team that got him. And much like Trea Turner, he remarked about watching the postseason on TV and how energized and crazy and alluring that attractive that Citizens Bank Park was. So I'll tell you what, Red October proved to be a pretty good December negotiating chip for the Phillies, because Turner loved what he saw, Strahm loved what he saw. Obviously, it's not the sole reason they came here. Probably be down in the depth chart behind, opportunity and contract and things like that, but certainly didn't hurt the way those fans and the chemistry the team showed in October that these guys want to be part of it. So, yeah, if you look at the bullpen, you got Sir Anthony, you got Alvarado, now you add Strahm, Brogdon, Bellotti. Who am I missing?
That's pretty much the core of who returns. Dominguez, Alvarado, Bellotti, Brogdon, Strahm. Sam Coonrod was re-signed to a 1-year deal. Nick Nelson still in the picture, Christopher Sanchez / Bailey Falter if they don't start. But, that would have been my next question, is that even with Strahm in the mix, still seems like the Phillies need at least one more veteran reliever, right? They just watched David Robertson sign a 1-year, $10 million contract with the Mets. David Robertson, I would have thought, would have been an option as a reunion on a short-term deal. That's kind of pricey, but someone of that ilk, I would think, still necessary at the back end.
Yeah, I think they're going to add inventory and probably multiples in the bullpen. Maybe on a big league deal, maybe minor league invites. And you try to get something out of it. See if you can, hit on something. Like Andrew Bellotti. Came out of a minor league deal and he really hit on something. Had a good year, especially against righties. Showed that, he really prioritized that slider. Had a very good year. He really was a contributor down there. So they will add more numbers, and I think they need to. And then they have some guys in the minor leagues. It would be really, really great if Francisco Morales could finally put it together and become a contributor up here. It's time. Andrew Baker, he's going to get a look in spring training, and I would expect to see him here at some point this year, and others. But yeah, I don't think Dave Dombrowski is done with his team, and Sam Folder done with their team. And I expect to see the bullpen an area where they focus on here. Fringy guys, and hoping that something clicks and you get more out of them than maybe the signing in itself would suggest.
Well, Strahm, for example, like $7.5 million, that's a very good AAV for a reliever. When the offseason began, I don't know if he would have been pegged as a guy who would have gotten that much. And if you look at the bullpen moves the Phillies have made in recent years, many of them have been the one-year variety for like a veteran, proven back-end guy. You think of like 1 year, $6 million for Brad Hand, same price for Juris Familia. It was 1 year, $10 million for Corey Knebel. Those deals worked out or didn't work out to varying degrees. Familia was gone by August. Hand struggled late. Knebel was gone for the second half of the season with an injury. So this is like a bit of a different route the Phillies are taking with Matt Strahm, who isn't the traditional veteran reliever who becomes available that you sign. I mean, he's had 4 good seasons out of 6 that he's been in the majors for a full year, but he's been more of like that 6th, 7th inning guy as opposed to a 8th, 9th inning guy.
Well, if, Sir Anthony and Alvarado and do what you think they can do and continue to do what they have done when they're good, and if what we saw from Brogdon in October is for real, you might, there's your kind of your back end. I mean, and the 6th and 7th innings are very, very important. I think, if Matt Strahm is a really good contributor in that time frame of the game, you're going to take it. Be great if these starters could give you the 6th. I mean, this 5-inning stuff, you got to, to me, the starters got to get you through 6. And then, you get your bullpen to work. Otherwise, I think you're overexposing your bullpen, unless you're going 8 deep out there and everybody's throwing 99 and controlled strikes. But yeah, I think Strahm could be a good fit. And, you mentioned those, 1-year guys, the $6 million guys, Hand and Familia, and then Knebel. They gave this guy, a 2-year deal, $7.5 million, as you mentioned, off of that one really good season. And as Strahm himself indicated, the Phillies were very aggressive, and they made sure he was going to take that deal and jump at it. So they obviously see something there that they can work with. I will say this: if it's the analytics approach, I don't know what it is, but they made a guy like Bellotti better. Maybe they can make this guy better. Zach Wheeler will tell you he's gotten better since he's been here, because of the bonds he's built with their pitching staff, pitching coach Caleb Cotham, Brian Kaplan, and Dave Lundquist, and some of the stuff he has learned and been able to implement from their analytics and their data. I know a lot of folks criticize that, but the pitcher's out there. He's the guy that's doing the work and doing the job. And if he's saying it's making a difference for me, well, it's making a difference for him. So they must see something they like on Strahm, and maybe they can get a couple really good years out of him. But certainly, they certainly could use it. So they were aggressive there. They got their guy.
Talking about the Phillies bullpen, Jim referenced Connor Brogdon there. Something about the playoff run that shouldn't go by the wayside, the fact that Connor Brogdon finished it off. His final 6 appearances at the playoffs, 8 1/3 innings, just 4 base runners, no runs, 13 strikeouts. So under really high pressure, under the brightest of lights, Connor Brogdon performed, and you hope that carries forward into next season, along with the success Andrew Bellotti unexpectedly had in 2022.
Yeah. And Brogdon was the guy who was almost traded in spring training. I think there was some frustration with just his readiness to pitch. And maybe just some of the inconsistencies, and their ears were open on him. And I've heard there was a deal in the works, and he just wasn't ready to pitch to open the season. So the deal didn't happen. And I think right now everybody's glad that he stayed here. He was up and down throughout the season, but in a lot of bright spotlight moments, he came up really big down the stretch in October. The ingredients are there. The fastball's power, and there's that great changeup that is, can really come in here. He can face lefties or righties because he can really, he's got that power fastball, but he's got that really good changeup, which is plus pitch for him. So if if he can build on that experience, that's a great thing. I mentioned him almost being traded in spring training. I mean, Alec Bohm was more than available for a trade in spring training. I had scouts asking me about him because, asking what's he like and things like that. And that just tells you his name is out there, that he's available, and people are doing intel on him. So I would think they're very happy that Bohm and Brogdon, they didn't trade those guys, and that they gave them more time to find themselves and to build confidence. And both of them did, and maybe the best is yet to come in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, Dave Dombrowski's made a lot of impactful moves running the Phillies so far. Those might be two more of them, not parting ways with Bohm and Brogdon at what would have been, much lesser value than they have just 6-7 months later. Jim, this Taijuan Walker contract, 4 years, $72 million, to come in and be the number 3 or number 4 starter, essentially replaces that spot that Zach Eflin would have been in for much of last season before the injury shifted him to the bullpen. Taijuan Walker has had one season at 160-plus innings. He's had 3 seasons in the 150s, including the last 2. Made 29 starts each of the last 2 seasons. He's going to pitch in 2023 at his age 30 season. The performance to this point wouldn't really say $18 million a year pitcher, $72 million pitcher. He's had a couple of really good seasons, but it's been back and forth, inconsistent. But just hearing Dave Dombrowski speak, this was what it cost to sign one of these top tier guys in terms of the next tier below the aces. There were guys who had qualifying offers. There were guys who didn't have qualifying offers attached to them. Kind of an unfair process when you think about it. Someone like Chris Bassett is still sitting out there unsigned, and he might not get as nice of a contract as a Tyone or a Taijuan Walker. But what did you think of this deal?
I like that they didn't, give up any draft picks. They prioritized the guy without a qualifying offer. You need those draft picks, and it's a big number, but that's the price of pitching. And it was vital that they came out of this winter with a legitimate starting pitcher in the mid-rotation for both what he can deliver in that role every 5th day and for the depth that he provides, because we've talked about it ad nauseum, but depth is going to be crucial on this roster and this pitching staff, because you're going to probably break in a young guy like a Painter at some point. Andrew Painter, Griff McGarry's going to be in the picture, maybe Abel down the road. You're going to have to watch their innings. You got 2 guys at the top in Wheeler and Nola, who are both outstanding major league pitchers. But both, Nola has shown signs of fatigue late in seasons, recent years. Carried a humongous load since 2018, the most innings in the majors. And then you got Wheeler, who showed some signs of fatigue late this year. He'll pitch at 33 next year, turn 33 next year. I'm not suggesting they're not going to be, very effective and major contributors, but I just do think when you have a chance, you trim back so they have plenty of bullets when you get to the place you want to go, and that's meaningful games in September and meaningful games beyond that, postseason games. So you're going to have to be very cognizant of this rotation up and down, of the rotation's workload. Get them rest when you can. So that makes depth very important. And it makes guys in the middle of that rotation, Ranger Suarez and Taijuan Walker, makes it very important you get innings out of those guys. So Walker is a few years now removed from the elbow surgery, and he's starting to stay healthy, and he gave you innings with the Mets. And, I think maybe, he's another case of maybe the best could be yet to come, but going to be a very, very valuable guy, because there's a lot of value. Innings are valuable, and you need them, and that's what it costs to get those guys. So, very key signing. Key signing. Got that great splitter, and see what you can do around him. He's supposed to be a good guy. I think he'll fit in here well.
Last 5 seasons, as you mentioned, Aaron Nola leads all of Major League Baseball in innings pitched, and Zach Wheeler is 4th. Wouldn't you think, Jim, that it's unlikely in 2023, I'm just speculating here, that, like, wouldn't you think the Phillies would not want Aaron Nola to get to 200 innings in 2023? I mean, if you look at his last 4 seasons, excluding 2020, when it was the shortened 60-game season, he's gone 212, 202, 181, 205 innings, and that's not even counting the playoff run as well. This is 4 extreme workloads in a row, and they saw at the end of the playoff run that it caught up to guys like Wheeler and Nola. Wheeler was electric in Game 6 of the World Series, but the velocity had waned before that. Nola, who had just been so good throughout 2022, was not that Aaron Nola in his final, 3-4 starts maybe? So, I mean, wouldn't you think that you talked about maybe scaling back, but like I would be surprised if they pushed Nola and Wheeler nearly as much as they did the last 2 seasons. And in that regard, does that mean that we're going to see a half dozen starts out of Christopher Sanchez, a half dozen starts out of Bailey Falter?
Maybe. I could see this team getting creative with this rotation, mixing in a 6th starter now and then, just to get these guys some extra rest. I don't know if they go into a season, with a Painter and Abel or McGarry. Yeah, I think there's a number in the back of their head, innings-wise. But, with established veterans like Nola and Wheeler, I don't know if you necessarily have a number in mind. You're kind of looking at the stuff, and you're evaluating the arm angle and spin and other telltales that can, tell you whether a guy is fatigued or not. And that's, I think, where you trim back. But I think we're kind of saying the same thing here. You got to watch those guys. And but I don't know they're going to say we're going to limit Aaron Nola to 190 innings this year. It's how he's feeling and how he's registering on your data and where the stuff is and adjusting along the way. But I do think when you have the opportunity to get him an extra day, you got to do it. Because, with the money they're spending, with the talent they have on their team, they don't want, this is not going to be they don't want to be playing a 6-month season. They want to be playing a 7-month season. It's not like you're going to get to September 30th and go home. They need to enter the season with the expectation that they're going to play in October, and they need to have those pitchers ready to go. And if that means on June 3rd, with, a 7-2 lead and the guy is cruising and you take him out after 7 innings and everybody's yelling, let him finish. No, those are the times you trim, I think. Those are the times you trim. Extra day coming out of the All-Star break. Those are the times you trim. Christopher Sanchez, you're gonna make a start this turn through. Get the guy an extra day. Those are the areas you trim, and I think it's a feel thing. But I also think it's supported by their data. And I don't know that you can script it going into the season, but when you see it on the data and when you feel it in your gut, that's when you pull it back. When you feel it by talking to the pitcher, that's when you pull it back. Because I don't want to say you have to prioritize rest going into October. That's not the case. But you have to prioritize having as fresh as possible pitching staff going into October. Because it bit them at times this year. But they had to ride those guys because they had to get there. So, I think there's going to be a lot of creativity in the way they run this starting rotation this year. It should be really interesting.
I'm smiling as you were talking about, the idea of like it being mid-July and a pitcher having a good pitch count and cruising and everybody screaming for him to go back out for the 8th inning. Like, we're having this conversation right now. I think logically most fans realize the long term is more important, having these guys fresher in October, but those conversations always still happen every single time that plays out. That's the conversation on the pre and post game shows, on radio. That's just the way it is. That's the way the sports are, the day-to-day nature of it.
Right. And I go back to the days when guys, I covered Schilling, I covered Halladay, and these guys pitched 240 innings like a blink of an eye, 250 innings like it was nothing,
The Halladay thing is especially just eye-popping when you go back and you look at those 2 seasons with the Phillies that he pitched the full loads, because it wasn't that long ago, yet it seems like an eternity ago when you look at the game log and it's 8, 7.2, 9, 8, 9. That just doesn't happen with anybody.
Well, except Alcantara.
Right. He's the one guy, I guess.
But my point is, like, I'm a believer that the guy should be able to go 250 innings, a quality, top-notch starter. That should be like the benchmark. But I also recognize the game has changed, and these guys conditioned differently and developed differently. Different things are emphasized. So I acknowledge that things have changed, and maybe Sandy Alcantara is going to change it. I don't know, but this is kind of the way this staff is. And we kind of have evidence that guys get worn down. We saw it. The word fatigued was used with Nola, with Wheeler. Okay, do everything in your power to prevent that, because everybody expects another Red October in 2023. And you need those two guys dealing, because they are really good and really valuable. So it adds a whole other dynamic to this. You want to get that. You want to prepare that pitcher so he can pitch a gem every 5 days, but you also have to prioritize, his condition, rest, keeping him fresh for the long haul, and that, it's going to be interesting to see how they do that. And an important variable in all of that, I believe, is pitching depth. So I could see them even adding maybe a swingman type, who could go back and forth. I think that type of guy like that would be very valuable on this team. Maybe it's Chris Sanchez, because pick up a start now and then, go to the bullpen, here and there. A guy like that would really help this team. We'll see. Maybe somebody's out there like that.
I want to talk a little bit about Trea Turner and some of the moves made by the teams in the NL East, but also want to tell you guys about the Someone You Know podcast from the Independence Blue Cross Foundation. The opioid addiction is a national public health crisis, and the Someone You Know podcast offers inspiring stories that challenge stigma, offer hope, and humanize the disease of addiction. You can download the new Season 3 of Someone You Know on all major podcast platforms. Jim, last week, Trea Turner was introduced by the Phillies. Actually, watching the introductory press conference, it had me thinking, we were so used to seeing the guy put on the jersey, right, over his dress shirt. Turner puts the jersey on, and he starts to do a couple buttons, and you see him pause and wonder, how many buttons do I have to button here before I sit down? So I think he just did like the first two and left the rest undone. But so Trea Turner, that was his first appearance in front of the Philadelphia media as a Philly. He talked about the batting order. He was asked about it pretty quickly, about batting 1, batting 2, all that. Anything stick out to you from your first glimpse of Trea Turner, the Phillies' new $300 million man?
Honestly, what stuck out is I thought he handled himself really well. I thought he was smart and mature. He kind of took control of the press conference, even before, as they kind of opened it up to questions, he kind of interjected that he would like to say something. And he thanked, his family and his agents, but he also thanked all the coaches that he had as a youth player and high school player, college player, and in pro ball. And I think that's really a classy thing to do, because when you have a bad day like that in your career, it doesn't happen by yourself. So I was impressed by that. And I was impressed by all his answers and how well-spoken he was and how sharp he was. He handled the question about where he's going to hit in the order. Obviously, it's a hot question. And it will be all spring. And Rob Thompson's going to have to deal with it. But he handled it, right on. He says, basically, it's up to Rob Thompson in the front office where they want me to hit. I'm capable of hitting 1, 2, or 3. Those are the spots he's hit. I think he could be productive in all 3 of them. But he was smart enough to show Kyle Schwarber a lot of respect, and he did that both in word and with a little bit of humor. They're good friends. He said Schwarber had actually texted him that morning, Thursday morning, to ask him where he's going to hit in the lineup. So Schwarber likes hitting leadoff. He was an unorthodox leadoff hitter. I mean, he led the league in home runs and strikeouts. Had a low on-base percentage as leadoff man, but they got to the 6th game of the World Series with him. He rescued their season in June, all out of the leadoff hole. So, to me, that deserves respect. And Rob Thompson spoke about it afterward, and I think he showed it respect. He said Schwarber loves leading off. We're going to talk about it. But he acknowledged that, you acquire a Trea Turner, that could be a game changer. I think fundamentally it would make an awful lot of sense to put Turner and his on-base skills, his contact skills, and his speed at the top of the order and have some of your mashers in behind him. And I think when push comes to shove, that's what they'll end up doing. And Schwarber, in my opinion, would have no trouble going along with it. As long, I know how much he loves leading off, but this guy is a team guy and he wants to win. He'll do whatever is right. But, what he did last year deserves a little bit of respect. And I think that's what they're giving to him. But, when the season opens, I fully expect to see Trea Turner at the top. And it won't surprise me if he hits one. But, we'll see. Rob Thompson also said, he's sort of the definition of a 1 or 2 hitter. So there is a little bit of flexibility there. I think the thing that, I think we obsess a lot about where guys are going to hit in the order. Just be happy he's here. He's a hell of a player. He's going to help win a lot of ball games.
So looking around the division, Mets, it's been a wild offseason for the Mets. Jacob deGrom left early, replaced by Justin Verlander. I was astonished when I saw the numbers for this Brandon Nimmo contract at 8 years, $162 million. All respect to Brandon Nimmo. He's a high on-base percentage guy, I think like 390 plus for his career. And he provides energy, the way he runs everything out, almost to a comical degree when he walks. But $162 million for this guy. It just shows you the way that contracts have exploded. I mean, I think even 5 years ago, an outfielder in this tier would be getting $14 million a year over 4 or 5 years. I wonder if his other offers even came close to this, or if this was a matter of Steve Cohen just pulling out all the stops because some other things hadn't gone the Mets' way this offseason. But let's start there.
Well, I agree with you. It feels like an overpayment in years and dollars, but this game has a lot of money in it. And within it, Steve Cohen has a lot of money himself and a lot of desire to win. He's their own guy. He hit the market at the time where there was kind of a lot of competition for his services, and I think they just wanted to get him off the market and keep him. I'll say this, he's a really important guy to that team. We think about other guys on that team, Lindor, Pete Alonso. You obviously, last year we're thinking DeGrom and Scherzer. This year you're going to be thinking Scherzer and Verlander. Two guys that I think are incredibly valuable to that team and help that team go are Nimmo and McNeil. They both grind. They both play with tons of energy. They both make things happen. They're both a thorn in the other team's side. I agree with you. It seems like a lot, but I'll tell you what, that kid can play on my team any day. Jeff McNeil as well. So I think there was something important about retaining him. I just don't know what he's going to be like on the back end of that deal. I don't know what anybody's going to be like on the back end of these deals, these $8, $9, $10, $11 million deals. It just feels like, you sign those long deals, and if you can get, star level production up front and win a World Series, it becomes worth it. But there are a lot of long deals, there are a lot of big dollars out there, and your big market teams with the deep pockets, they see somebody they want. They're not screwing around. They're going out and getting them. In case in point, DeGrom.
And then the Braves. I mean, I haven't really seen many people talking about this yet. Maybe if the offseason goes by and they're inactive, but, it seems like they're going to lose Dansby Swanson. The latest report there was that they really haven't made any sort of competitive offer to Swanson. They lost Kenley Jansen, who signed with the Red Sox, I believe. And Kenley Jansen had some downs late in the season, but he also led the National League in saves last year as a key part of their bullpen. They lose Swanson. They lose their closer in Kenley Jansen. They replace him with Raisel Iglesias, but then it creates maybe a hole in the 7th or 8th inning. They could take a bit of a step back. I mean, they're also hoping for full health from Spencer Strider, who encountered some issues late in the season as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with Swanson. It's been awfully quiet. It seems like they're waiting for him to come back to them. Hometown kid, won a World Series here. Do you want to, be here and finish here? And but I think you can operate that way when you have a good farm system and when you've drafted and developed well, and they're very good at that. They have been very good for a long time in procuring elite young talent, be it through the draft or through international signings. And you see both in their lineup. And they have the kid Grissom coming that they think can play shortstop. So I think that affects maybe their conduct and not showing a ton of urgency in bringing Dansby Swanson back. But I still don't count it out. So we'll see there, but they seem more than comfortable to play Grissom. Yeah, I don't know that they've taken a step back. I count that team out at my own, very leery to count that. That's a good team with a good lineup and a lot of good players and a lot of good young pitching. Couple, Jansen was a loss, but they got Iglesias back, right?
Yeah, Iglesias coming back, AJ Minter coming back, and a bit of an X factor in their bullpen is Kirby Yates. You remember how good he was like 4 years ago with the Padres? And obviously that's a question mark based on health. Real quick, just as I'm sitting here as we're doing this, the Giants just agreed to a 2-year, $25 million deal with Sean Manaea, the left-handed starting pitcher. Just another price tag that's interesting to put in comparison to like a Taijuan Walker. Manaea struggled at the end of last season, but just interesting that he gets $225 when you have guys like Tyone, $468, Taijuan Walker, $472. I guess it just speaks to the difference in teams' view of Sean Manaea, who, early last season was looking like a guy who was going to get serious money.
Did he even pitch against the Phillies? Maybe once in the NLCS.
Yeah, that was the only playoff start he made. They really didn't trust him. It was kind of similar to Kyle Gibson, how the Phillies felt that he just didn't. He had just run into a wall late in the year. Yeah,
you see him you feel like he wasn't even a big factor on that team late in the season. So, the Giants put a value on him, and it wasn't up to what Walker and Tyone got. So there's a reason for that.
All right. Well, lots of movement in this free agent market. A lot of the biggest pieces have now come off the board, but still some huge names in Carlos Correa, and as we were just talking about, Dansby Swanson, which could have some ripple effects on the NL East race. So thanks a lot, as always, for listening or watching the Phillies Talk podcast on YouTube. Catch you soon.